friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily. My daughter Grace just turned 1 this weekend, and I make videos about being a mom and playing with your baby and having everybody survive that in one piece with sanity intact. And right now we're in the middle of a really fun series called Purposeful Play. If you haven't seen the rest of those videos, you can go back. There's a whole playlist. It starts with an intro and then I've chunked it by 3 months. And this is actually the last video in that series for at least the first year. So we're just coming out of this 9 to 12 month range ourselves since we just hit 1. And if I could sum this time period up in like a few words, it's really just go, go, go. I feel like a big change from this age versus my last video is that your baby probably won't sit still. And at first that can be a little bit frustrating because I feel like I had finally kind of figured out some toys that I wanted to get her and had the whole playroom set up, and she just wanted to move. And when you look at the skills that your baby is trying to acquire at this time period, it actually makes a lot of sense. The 9 to 12 month mark is all about gross motor development. Your baby's probably already sitting up by themselves pretty well, but they are learning to crawl, they're learning to pull themselves up to stand, they're learning to creep and maybe even walk. So movement is the name of the game. And if you know that and prepare yourself, you might be able to feel a little bit more peace that they might not sit in one place and play with a specific activity, and you can just focus on following their lead. So let's talk a little bit about those gross motor developments. So first off, learning to crawl, probably one of the biggest motor developments other than learning to walk that you're going to see in that first year. So a great way to get them to take those first few movements is to get some sort of toy that moves, that gives them something to chase after. So cars are great, balls are great, anything that rolls. We found a lot of success just kind of rolling a pacifier. I feel like if you have an older sibling or a pet, this would also be great motivation in getting your kiddo to get moving. But other than doing tummy time, giving them lots of time on the floor, just give them something motivation to move after. So once they're crawling, or maybe around the same time, your baby will start to pull themselves up. Now, in some Montessori classrooms, they have a baby pull-up bar, which is basically like a little ballet type bar that's mounted at a low height that the baby can pull themselves up on. We thought about installing that in our playroom, but I didn't really want something that would be hammered into the wall and might only be used for a few months. So what we ended up doing was we actually just took a diaper box and backed it up to the couch so that Grace could pull herself up, and it was the perfect height and free. And now you can't see it, but her whole playroom is basically lined with diaper boxes, so it's like a giant shelf that she can walk all along and hold on. So if you're looking for something that is free and temporary, go for a diaper box. It's a great height for pulling up. Once your baby is pulling up onto things and seems pretty confident, it might be a good time to encourage them to creep, which is basically walking along the edge of something like a couch while still holding on. We're kind of in this phase right now, and what we like to do is put a couple of toys along the edge of the couch, and maybe even something super enticing and forbidden like the remote at the very end, and she will kind of hand over hand herself along the couch trying to get to those toys, and that can encourage her to also do so with only one hand to try to increase her balance. The last big milestone that your baby may be tackling at this time is walking, and we're not there yet. I want you to know that for a lot of babies, 1 is still pretty early for them to be walking. So I think anywhere from like 14 to 15 months is totally normal. But if you want to encourage walking, one thing that can really help is having some sort of push toy that they can pull themselves up on that gives them something stable to hold on to while they practice. My parents actually got her a little radio flyer wagon for her first birthday, and that came really highly recommended because of the way that the weight is distributed. It's really hard to tip over. And if you want to slow it down even more, you can put a couple of books, or we put a dumbbell in there, and that helps to slow down the speed. Regardless of where your baby is at on the gross motor development scale, one of the big things you want to do is just give them lots of time to explore. Your baby has literally waited their entire life to be able to see the inside of the pantry or your closet or what is behind the toilet. All of those spaces are super interesting to them, and now that they can move, it's great motivation to satisfy their curious little minds and just see what's going on in there. So just follow them around the house and make sure they don't die or stick their head in the toilet, anything like that. But really, we spend most of the day just kind of walking slowly behind Grace as she toodles around on her hands and knees and gets into stuff. Okay, so we covered all of those big gross motor developments that are happening, but there are some fine motor developments that are happening as well. Between the 9 to 12 month range, your baby is really focusing in on developing their pincer grasp, which is the way that you would go to pick up a pea or a coin. It's this motion like this. And one of the easiest ways to do this, whether or not you're doing baby-led weaning or you've been doing purees, is to introduce some finger foods. You can check with your pediatrician first, but because the pincer grip is mostly grabbing small items, one of the easiest ways to do that is with edible food, because these are small items that would not necessarily be a choking hazard. So whether that's puffs or halved blueberries or Cheerios, all of those things are really great practice for your baby in developing that grip. Outside of mealtime, I sometimes like to take a muffin tray and put a couple of puffs or Cheerios in each cup and let her kind of work to grab each one around the cup. You can also get specific pincer grip puzzles online that just have really small handles. I didn't find they were super engaging for Grace, and Melissa and Doug actually have some normal puzzles that just have smaller knobs, so to speak. So we actually go with those. We have two that are sound puzzles that Grace really likes, and those are awesome because she has to really, really hone in on that grip in order to pull the pieces out. Another great pincer grip activity is peeling tape. So I have a huge roll of painter's tape that has gotten so much use, and I will either tape a few of her favorite toys onto the wall and she'll pull them off, or I'll tape them into a muffin tray, or I'll tape some photos up to the wall. Any of that, she'll try to pick at it and peel the tape up. And as long as I make the tape chunks pretty big and supervise it, I feel pretty safe letting her play with the tape, and I think it's awesome for developing those fine motor skills. Okay, last thing we're going to talk about in this video is the verbal explosion that is happening at 9 to 12 months. So by the time your baby turns 1, they will comprehend almost 50 words, which is crazy. And that comprehension skill is going to come in long before their vocal cords and mouth are capable of forming words themselves. So what are some ways we can take advantage of the fact that your baby is understanding the things that you say and help them to communicate? This is where baby sign language comes in, and we only saw the fruits of this labor in the last month or so, but it is so fun to finally be able to have Grace communicate the things that she needs and wants. So I'll probably do a whole video on baby sign language in the future because I've just found it so helpful. But to give you a little TLDR, we chose 3 basic signs that we felt like we would use a lot in our day-to-day life. We did more, all done, and milk. So more, all done, and milk. And basically the way that we taught her was starting around 9 months, every time we would go to feed her or give her a bath, or any of those times in her day that it made sense in the context, we would sign as we were saying the word. So we would be eating and I would say, oh, I'm giving you more strawberries, or we would finish her bath and they'd say, all done. And we did this for months without her showing any sign of it like hitting home at all. And then after a month or 2, I started actually taking her hands and helping her to make the sign as well. And I think this was what really cemented it for her. After maybe a month of putting hand over hand and helping her to do the signs, I would pause for a minute and say, what do you want? And one day she did more.
What do you want, love? Do you want more? Yeah? Are you all done? All done. Good job.
And now, you know, we're a month or 2 into her signing pretty consistently, and I feel like it has helped with tantrums and fussiness so much. And it's also been a great motivator to further her communication skills because she understands, oh, I can communicate to mom and dad what it is that I want, and then I get it. And no, there's plenty of times for boundaries in the future, but for right now, her being able to communicate the things that she wants are just causing her to want to learn more and more words and more signs, which is awesome and just setting her up for so much success. The other big thing in verbal development at this age are books. And this is probably Grace's favorite thing. She could sit here in the playroom and read the same book over and over and over and say more every time that we finish it. In part, babies really love the act of turning the pages. So if you can let them do that, that helps them to get engaged. But when you do read to them, try to sit in front of them so they can see your mouth make the words, because that's part of how babies learn how to speak. So as far as verbal comprehension, you might want to consider adding in baby sign language and also continue to read as much as you can so your baby gets exposure to words that you might not use in your day-to-day life. All right, I think that's it. That wraps up the whole first year. I hope this was helpful. I hope it gave you some ideas of ways that you can meet your baby where you're at, and let's move on to toddlerhood. Bye.